Good morning, folks. Good morning, Israel. I don't know if I can pull this one off, but I'm going to try. You see, I really don't like the yellow school buses. They represent to me tyranny. They represent to me enslavement. They represent to me industrial prisons in which we keep the children locked up and get them ready so that when they get older, we can convict them of felonies and put them in our industrial prisons. And in our industrial prisons, the state governments are making money off those. They earn a profit. Costs them less to house the inmate than the federal government awards them. That's unethical. It needs to be pointed out that this whole system is designed up because we got off kilter. So, the yellow school bus to me is another form of organized crime. Yeah, I'm forced to stop for the children. I'm forced to do less speed in those zones. The children, for some reason, are brought up to be dumbasses. They're not taught to look both ways crossing the street. What's with parents? What's with teachers? You know, we didn't have all of these laws, these rules, these regulations when I was growing up. Certainly we were started on them. But the fact is that American education sucks. And it's screwing up this nation worse than anything right now. And so basically that yellow school bus represents a golden cow. A sacred cow. You cannot challenge education. You're not allowed to discuss it. You can't undermine it. You can't improve upon it. You can't criticize it. You have to worship it. You have to revere it. I was fortunate. I talked to older people a long time ago. They told me what the country was like. And when it came to education, our approach to it was completely different. We didn't graduate children as cohorts. We didn't automatically advance them to the next stage. We didn't have this dictatorial thing about socialization and dumbing down and hobbling the children. Basically, that's what you do with these government schools. You don't teach how to think. They'll never teach you what you need to know in order to challenge their authority. Improve your lot to rule over yourselves. They've dumbed down the country. They've been very successful at it. I think they should all be fired. I don't see a need for the Department of Education. It's a cabinet level seat. Let's just fire them all. Let's save the money. Let's diminish the size of government. And I'm being very serious. The government has no business being in education and controlling education. It's like the way they control our lives. When we were younger as a country, the schools were ruled by the parents. Parents got together and hired the teachers. They pooled their resources. You didn't have a government machine doing it. You had parents who were very involved in the lives of their children, deciding who to hire and fire in terms of teachers. So there was immediate retribution for bad teachers, and you got rid of them. The schoolhouse was entirely different. There weren't grades. There were subjects, and there was mastery of subjects, domains, mastery of domains, mastery of the subject. It was much more independent, and we created much more independent minds, much more independent people, much freer people, much more creativity and entrepreneurship. A man didn't even need a high school diploma to function in society. Basically, your sixth grade education was it. The education was that much better. I would dare say that a lot of people educated to the sixth grade level back when my grandparents were alive We're educated to a higher level than the people coming out of these universities, out of these industrial complexes that basically wreck children, turn them into budding young commies. They've destroyed the children. Do we not need to step up? They groom the children. I mean, look at it now. They've got children confused over their genders. Children are dealing with things that we didn't deal with. We didn't deal with what gender are you? Well, yes, of course we were curious. And there was a lot of innocence in that. And we were allowed to grow up at a reasonable rate. Now we force children, we sexualize them. We force them to think about sex. We force them to choose genders. We force them to enter into this land of confusion. Because growing up, there's a little bit of confusion. And there are some problems. We're not all quite the same. There are some physical abnormalities that do occur in nature and among humankind. And there's problems with chemistry as well that occur among humans. So there are some outliers, some abnormalities that happen. And that's a natural part of the nature of humanity. It's not desirable. Those people who are on the outskirts are not as happy. The people who did the research in that were suppressed once they came out with their findings that people were not happier being androgynous. They were happier when they had good, clear sex differences, gender identity. They were happier, more fulfilled, led better lives. Now it's all screwed up. So, I don't like seeing the yellow school buses. I don't like catering to them. Above all, they represent the drag upon society that I have to fund these institutions of slavery, these prisons for our children. That's how I look at it. That's how I regarded it. Now, back when we had the little red schoolhouse, it was one classroom. All the children were mainstreamed together. You had older children, you had younger children. You had children that knew the subject matter helping other children. It was much nicer. So if you had a problem with your long division or something with mathematics, you found the woman or the boy, the girl that was the expert at it, and they showed you what they did, and you learned that way. The teacher surely ran the classroom. There was good order in it. But you had many teachers. You had a lot of help, a lot of stimulation. And when you mastered a subject, you were graduated to the next level. So you did not graduate high school, you were graduated. Your teachers were the ones graduating you. You did not graduate yourselves. That's an important distinction. I don't know that I'm adequate to explain it, but an older teacher told me, you don't graduate yourself. We, your teachers, graduate you. And the standard for going to college for most of our country's history was age 14. Age 14, a man and women went to college, in case you're wondering. It wasn't total oppression. It really came down to the economics of the family. This social experiment in communism in the United States, United Socialist States of America, is at an end. We've turned in upon ourselves. We have people there who are so insane and so crazy, they think crime is okay. They think it's okay to enable it. They think it's just fine. They're insane. If it keeps going at the rate it's going, the way it's going, the average man will take the law into his own hands as a matter of self-defense, as a matter of protecting his family. And by the way, women get away with more murder than men. Don't kid yourselves. You've grown up thinking one thing. Well, the fact is that men are far more polite to one another because we know that violence is very real and very possible. Whereas a woman will get in another person's face to the point where violence is inevitable. They're not held accountable. They're not held to the same standards. It's inane. It's horrible. You have women leading the nation like Kathy Hochul, who takes your guns away, refuses to allow you to defend yourself. Now, what is it? Every other week, somebody is pushed to their death in the New York subway, and they get away with it. And that's okay, because we have bail-free bonds. You don't have to bond yourself out of jail on things like that. I don't know, folks. I don't know what you think, but it's gone crazy. And I think the yellow school bus is a bad symbol. It's a symbol of organized crime, organized institutional imprisonment of our youth, of our children. I mean, you try to force all children into learning in the same modality, the same limited way. And you feminized it. You feminized it so boys don't get an equal chance. Boys learn more hands-on. But you discriminate against boys. Yes, you do. You discriminate boys when it comes to the courts. Boys get in trouble, they go to prison. I remember when I was in high school, study came out. The average woman who murdered a man got 7 years in prison. That was it. The average man got 20, 21 years. Well, baby, you wanted equality. And the sad fact is there are actually more female sociopaths than there are male sociopaths. There's quite a few male sociopaths. And so there's problems. We do not have fairness in the country anymore. We don't have the rule of law. The Democrats refuse to hold other Democrats especially, to legal standards. Look at the FBI. It's organized crime par excellence. Best organized crime in the world. The school bus. I hated it. Riding to school. Yes, I was one of those that got bussed all the way across town due to the asinine ruling of Felix Frankfurter deciding that we were going to level the playing field by unleveling it. You cannot legislate outcomes. In my family, they tried to equalize outcomes, and it was a mistake to the family. It actually destroyed the family. Trying to ensure equal outcomes was a bad idea. It hurt the family. And as a result, the Kents are disappearing from the face of the earth. At least from my family, it's over with. We have, well, maybe we're not disappearing. We have one fellow who's carrying on the Kent name, and I don't know what's happened to him. There were 2 boys by another Kent, and one of them went through the ice when he was 10 years old. So one of them, I think, has probably got grandchildren at this point. I'd kind of like to look him up. I need you to understand that worshiping the school system, turning education, public education, public indoctrination into a sacred cow is helping to destroy America. You're not allowing children to advance at their own pace. You're holding them back in the name of equality. So the entire system, in my opinion, needs to be blown up. Oh, I have to watch my language. It's a figure of speech. It means basically we need to disassemble it. We need to stop funding it. We need to let it go private again. Anything this government touches turns to shit, including our health care. It took me a long time to realize that the doctors were killing most of us during the last few decades, but that's the way it's been. On average, we lose 500,000 Americans a year. On average, 400,000 of those deaths are due to medical errors. And we give those guys licenses to practice. And we don't give license to the other people who have safer practices. That's asinine. It's insane. It's crazy. As a result, America's become a shithole, a third world nation. There is no justice. There's a lot of processing. There's a lot of court time, a lot of undue process. Everything is set up for profit. That is what we worship. That and war. Yes, our God is the God of war. And here we are throwing our weight around the rest of the world with an inept asshole at the helm who's endangering the nation, endangering the world with his threats of nuclear war. The guy should be taken out of office on the 25th Amendment. The guy should be taken out of office for high treason. How do you get away with subverting the lifeblood of your nation? Oh, you vote Democrat. So it's okay for you to subvert the lifeblood of the nation. Truly, we need to cut this government down to size. And I'm going to give you a figure, 20%. We only need 20% of what we have today in the government to make this country run properly and smoothly. We can level the playing field. You can't level the outcome. You ever hear of God? Ever hear of Yahweh? Yahweh's got a say in that stuff, at least as far as I can see. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Well, we're one screwed up nation at this point. We've allowed some minorities to rule over us. We've allowed the bankers to divide us. They've used our institutions like the FBI and the CIA. They actually have got actors in these extremist groups. They found a lot of these extremist groups purposely as lightning rods to draw us away and have us at each other's throats. They purposely divided us before the Great Depression. That's what happens when you give the purse strings over to a money monopoly. That's what happens when you allow them to rule, to own, to do everything by fraud. Yeah, you took away honest money. As a result, you had World War I. You've had all these world wars because you have a minority who lives on both sides of the border, who manipulates the nation into war. Yes, that's going on. And the bad guys are all across the planet at this point. They are in the mountains. The mountains being symbolic for governments. They're in the governments. They hide behind the scenes. They're the ones that are pulling things off, the ones making decisions. Go identify them. Go look at the similarity and the characteristics of those people who are ruling over you, whom you are not allowed to criticize. You need to understand that even those people that think that they're being abused and have majored in becoming victims, even they have been used to a certain extent by these evil ones. So you have to go gingerly and be cautious with one another. Be careful. Be a little bit more considerate than what you think. We're sitting on a powder keg. It's ready to blow. I don't like those school buses. I don't like the education system. How many degrees do I have? But I don't consider myself educated until I sat on my derriere and read the Bible. Not once, but more than twice. Then I realized what I had deprived myself of by being too busy to educate myself on the foundations of Western civilization. So the foundations have been taken from us. The enemy gave us a Bible in the last century, a little over 100 years ago, called the Schofield Reference Study Bible. It has all kinds of psychological traps and landmines in it. This psychological warfare has been going on for a long, long time. It is embedded in the culture and in the language at this point. So, as the saying was, Joshua said, choose this day whom you will serve. And if you think you're going to be neutral, I got news for you. There's no neutrality possible in this war. It is the fight between good and evil. And those school buses, they're evil. They represent all the taxes on property, which is illegal in my opinion. If you own your property, how can it be taxed away from you? It's because you don't own it. You're just renting it. When this nation was founded, we had patented lands. My name is Kent. The Kents gave you this right to patented land. It came from the county of Kent in England. It was the only county in which the king gave a alloidial title. Alloidial title. I put the I in the wrong part of that word, okay? Alloidial. And in the States here, it was conveyed as patented land. So it was secured by the governor signing off, certifying that you indeed owned that land. You owned all of it. You owned the airspace above it. You owned the soil rights, the mineral rights below it. And it could not be attached. It could not be taxed. And then the bankers came along, and they decided to help you. They gave you a title. And they took away your land patent. They took away your ability to hold on to your land. Now, where did we get that ability to hold on to our land? Where did that tradition come from? That's right. It came from the ancient land of Israel. Israel, the tribes, the descendants of the man named Israel. We need to return to that. The idea for this nation is each man would own his own little plot of land that could not be attached. And if somebody else had a claim against you, they couldn't attach your property. They would have to work with you and form a trust so that you could discharge your debt without them ripping off your property. So your bankers really pulled big ones on you all over. I know. The land patent that my family had was disturbed. My grandfather did not understand. I don't think he understood. And my uncle, I explained it to him. I think he understands. But the Kents received a land grant from King George in 1649 in the New World on the Great Bay. A place called Adams Point. That land was sold to the Adams family by the Kents. And at this point, no Kent holds that property. I'd love to have it back. The Kents not only gave you that tradition, we also gave you the original King James Bible. We also gave you the Shakespearean plays. The family history is rather colorful. There was a Kent who was the Queen's consort. She had 2 children by him, 2 boys by him. Unfortunately, they would have burned her at the stake had she been discovered to have had children out of wedlock. And so that had to be hidden from you. had to be hidden from even the Kents. The Kents had an army in England, and we served the kings well. We served the development of that nation quite well. The Kent County is pretty big. It's not small. I loved education. It helped me avoid responsibility because I had an excuse. Well, I also was pretty much ordered to go to school even though I didn't want to. I had to keep it up. And then we had student loans. And I shucked my responsibility a little bit because I didn't know how to repay that stuff. I finally was able to repay it. And within months after discharging my debt, I suffered 2 strokes. Couldn't continue on in my profession. Of course, my profession kind of left me behind because it's ruled by liberals. The liberals have destroyed this nation, especially in the field of psychology. Learned helplessness, given to you by Seligman. Seligman, who's now trying to foist himself off as the father of positive psychology. Well, I coined a term, and I call it positive projective psychology. Why? To distinguish it from the negative practice that dominates the scene as the practice of psychology. Namely, that we reify the diagnoses, these categories, and we cast a fellow in cement shoes, if you will, and we toss them into the ocean, into the lake, into the water. We helped kill this country. There are very few conservative psychologists in the field. We are hammered every time we are discovered. We are run out of the profession. They insisted that we coexist, that we tolerate them to our demise. And that's the same it is with this minority that have controlled us and these other minorities that control us. In case you're wondering, Black Lives Matter didn't do it all on their own. In case you're wondering, Antifa wasn't a grassroots organization. They were all well funded. They were all well populated by agents of the government, just like the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, that was populated with 15 or 16 FBI agents. Imagine that, 20 men. And most of them are government agents setting that shit up. The FBI is no good. It must be dismantled. The central government is no good. We're waging war in a way to cause destruction to the world. We're being confronted about it. And I find myself on the defensive. I find myself trying to rationalize, why did we kill that General Soleimani? Oh, who killed him? Trump ordered it. He explained why he ordered it. It was a measure of self-defense. Now, was it justifiable? Well, according to Putin, we shouldn't be killing people that aren't on our own soil, that are doing stuff to us. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that. But the problem is that we've been throwing our weight around for way too long. American might has been misused and abused. Our Congress doesn't even do its job anymore. I think we need to get rid of Congress. Seriously. We need to send these Congress people home. And we tell the states, send new congressmen, new congresswomen. And we don't pay them. We don't turn them into professional politicians. We don't give them any pay or benefits. And I think as far as those people that have pay and benefits from serving in the Congress before, I think we take it away. They were derelict in their duties. They never balanced a budget in the last decade, did they? When's the last time a budget was balanced? And what do you mean balancing a budget? On future revenues? Money that doesn't even exist? Is that not theft? Yeah. Liars and thieves. That's Congress for you. And by the way, all of this inflation is due to government largesse. It's the government stealing from you. It's not the banks doing that as much as it is the government spending your children's futures, sentencing you to enslavement. We got away without having an IRS. We got away without having a Federal Reserve System. We got away without having an FBI. We got away without having a CIA for a long time. Until we let the enemy in and let organized crime take over this country. America's no longer great, my friends. Why? As Alec de Tocqueville said, America is great because she is good. When America stops being good, America has stopped being great. We need to turn in upon ourselves and straighten up this mess that we've caused across the whole planet. Our might has been misused. There was no reason for us to enter into World War I. We entered in on the side of the aggressor, the wrong side. But don't get me wrong, there was plenty of evil on the other side too. If we had stayed out of the whole matter, it would have been better off. It's the same in the Ukraine. If we had stayed out of the matter, we would not be here. Now you're stuck. You've actually empowered Putin. You've actually built up the Russian economy. Actually, it's probably been unfairly suppressed for a long time. We haven't given those people a fair shake. I'm praying to God that Putin establishes a gold standard. And I'm praying to God the world is smart enough to abide by it. You see, the rule of law may be coming out of Russia. We certainly aren't capable of administering a rule of law in this country anymore. That's why we have all of the crime going on. That's why we have all of the injustice. We are unable to rule ourselves, and we've demonstrated it. This is not self-rule. The elections are not valid. We're allowing George Soros to own the machines, the Chi-Coms to control the vote, and own our politicians. They even own our justices in the Supreme Court. How did we get here? How did we get so far off the mark? That stupid yellow school bus. Everybody likes them, but not Dr. Kent. I don't like them. I don't want to see centralized education. I don't want the government involved in education whatsoever. Because devils are at the helm. And they take away our self-determination. We hand them all of the power. And what do we expect? Oh, we're going to give up our rights and get a little bit more security. Bullshit. You've lost your nation. You've lost your freedom. You've lost your security. Can you get it back? Actually, you might be able to. Thomas Jefferson wrote about recovering the republic in the event the republic is lost. And it's definitely lost. It's gone. It's not a republic. We don't even have a democracy anymore. We have a totally controlled system in which the news media lies to us perpetually, and it's legal for the government to lie. We have become the people of the lie. We love lies. We do not want to hear the truth. Even the pastors lie in the pulpits. And Isaiah said, "My people love it so." There were no pastors when Isaiah wrote that. He really had some vision. They only had priests back then. He was writing about America today. Why? Because we are, or we were, the great nation spoken of in Genesis by Israel the man when he was giving his final blessings and talking about the futures, prophesying on his boys. on his sons. Yes, the United States of America is the great nation mentioned in the Bible. That is our inheritance, but we've been destroyed from within. We've been taught to hate our kind and to hate our people. White supremacists are the greatest threat. That's what your FBI tells you. Do you believe that? Well, I suppose if you're not a white person, you believe it. You want to believe that you're downtrodden, that you're treated unfairly. Look, the playing field stopped being level a long time ago. That's the only thing the government is supposed to be doing, is ensuring a fair playing field. You cannot ensure outcomes. Only Yahweh, God, can ensure outcomes. And certainly when you dumb down the population and you require children to advance slowly because their cohorts can't keep up with them, because all men aren't created equal. Sorry to say that. It's not true. That's a lie. We have different talents, different skills, different strengths, different weaknesses. We developed differently, unevenly. What a screwed up place it is. Man, I can't wait till there's no more yellow school buses. I don't like the exhaust of those gasoline engines very much. I don't like the way a lot of those bus drivers drive. I don't like those snot-nosed kids on those school buses that mock old people, that mock everything. They're so full of themselves, they think they know it all. They don't know a damn thing. And I don't know much more. What do you know? What do you know? What do you think you know? What is true? What is truth? What does the Bible command you to do? The Bible commands us clearly to love truth and justice. And of course, if you go to the old Superman show, it was love, truth, justice, the American way. That's what Superman stood for. Of course, I guess Superman's racist. What do you think? It was a concept of a Superman. Look, folks, one thing I do know is that ideals are pure in their nature, and life is messy in its nature. That doesn't mean we give up the ideals. That means we aspire to them. Doesn't mean we ever reach perfection and absolute purity. We just do our best. It's like the Ten Commandments. It's probably impossible for one of us to abide by all of them properly. At best, sometimes one is going to be in conflict with another. And of course, the worst thing is that we don't understand those. They lie about what those things mean from the pulpits. They lie about that stuff. So, folks, I don't care much for the yellow school bus. And I certainly don't like this dumbass bitch that's in office. She's not likable. She's not intelligent. She's not bright. She has no ethics. She's put a lot of black men in prison for smoking pot, something she does herself. Talk about hypocritical. She doesn't give a shit about justice or fairness or equality. And she's a heartbeat away from the presidency. And she's not fit for office. Any office. She should never have become a prosecutor. You voted for it, folks. You chose this stuff. What about that yellow brick road? What about Dorothy? What about the symbolism in that? What about the man behind the curtain pulling the strings? What about those people behind the scenes that rule over you, that you're not allowed to criticize? Folks, they're killing us, and they're going to nuke us. Do you understand that? Yahweh bless America. Go buy the Bible, sit on your butt and read the Bibles. Understand Sodom and Gomorrah. It wasn't just about sodomy. They were a wicked people, and they got nuked. God, the two angels went in there, hellfire and brimstone. And God will do it again to this country. We deserve it. We've earned it. Get on your knees and pray. And do your best to align yourself with the Holy Spirit. And do your Father, our Father's in heaven's will. There's different sorts of children. There's different sorts of adoption. But the inheritance can be had by all, I do believe, except for those destined to burn in the lake of fire, those who were descended of Cain, and the other of the 200 fallen angels that have caused all this havoc on the planet. Good day, folks. I've gone long. Thanks for hanging out with me. Yahweh bless.